Hello, my good faithful YouTube viewers and listeners. It is the Jer Bear on this very sad, somber Friday, May 27th, 2022. I come to you today in this daily rant with I'm in a whirlwind of emotions at the loss of my grandfather yesterday. I'm sad and I'm heartbroken. I'm devastated. I'm gutted. I'm really, really hurt, and I didn't get much sleep last night. So if I do come across as snarky or snappy or whatever word you want to use, I do apologize. I just didn't get much sleep. My mind is constantly on autopilot. My mind won't stop. I can't get that image of my grandpa out of my fucking head, no matter how hard I try. And every time I close my eyes, I can see him lying on the kitchen floor. And I mentioned this on Facebook and in my journal. It's the first time in all my life, up until Thursday morning, yesterday, I had never saw a corpse outside of a funeral parlor ever in my life. And I gotta tell you, it's one of the most morbid things you'll ever see. If you've never seen a dead body outside of a funeral home, or in a casket, if you've never saw a corpse outside of that environment, I'm telling you, it leaves a disgusting feeling in the pit of your stomach. Because it's a dead body. It's without embalming fluid. It's without the makeup. It's without, anything you would typically see in a funeral parlor. They do the embalming fluid. They put the makeup on the body. They try to make the deceased person look halfway decent or halfway presentable. What I saw was a dead body, as it was, my 82-year-old grandfather lying on his kitchen floor between his kitchen table and his stove. And we don't know the cause of death. I think there's going to be an autopsy. At least I hope there's going to be an autopsy. I don't have any information on that. But funeral arrangements are pending. I know the funeral is going to be at O'Gwyn Funeral Home in Montrose, probably sometime next week. If you're friends with me on Facebook, I will provide that information, and hope to see you there to pay your respects to my grandpa. He was my last surviving grandparent, by the way, so this makes this even more particularly hard for me to deal with. I never had really a bond with any of my grandparents. I was never close to any of my grandparents. I was never really even close to Grandpa Fuller. But because he was my last surviving grandparent, and, I wanted to have that bond with my grandpa. Now, I don't know why I was never close to my grandparents. That's another story for another day. But what I can say is I did spend time with my grandpa. Had I known that these were going to be his final days, I would have made these final days mean something more. And you can never predict things like this. It's just random. It's just like a luck of the draw kind of a thing. You just never know when something like this is going to happen. Like I said, I don't know the cause of death. I don't know if it was natural causes or what the case may be. But hopefully there's going to be an autopsy. I'm pretty sure there's going to be one. And we're going to find out the truth one way or the other. My grandpa was healthy as far as I know. I was over there on Tuesday, and he was, being his usual self. He was smoking a pack of Marlboros and, wearing his suspenders and cracking jokes. He was watching Westerns on television. He liked to watch The Rifleman and Gunsmoke and Wagon Train and How the West Was Won and The Big Valley. He loved Westerns. He loved John Wayne. He loved James Arness. He loved Chuck Connors and Barbara Stanwyck. He loved those people. He loved watching those shows. He grew up watching Westerns. So that was his thing. He loved Westerns. He even used to like to watch that show called Monk with Tony Shalhoub. Many of you might remember that program. My grandpa loved Monk. He used to watch, what's his name? Columbo. He used to watch Columbo. That was another one of his favorite programs. He liked the detective shows, the movie mystery kind of things. He would, we would go over to Hope, Junction of Hope there in Layton Corners, and you saw the video here on my YouTube channel where I kind of put together a little video montage of the Junction of Hope, kind of give them some publicity, give them a boost. And my grandpa, he was well known to the people and at the Junction of Hope. He would always take money and stick it into the pockets of the special needs employees, and they would come up and give Grandpa a big hug and say, "We love you, Herb." And Grandpa says, "I love you too." He says, "You're a hard worker and you deserve a little extra." And my grandpa tried to help everybody, and I think that's where Dad gets it, trying to help everybody, and that's where I get it. It kind of trickled down through the generations. So it's always nice to help somebody when you can, and my grandpa was that kind of a person. He tried to help as many people as he could. But this is really difficult because, as I said, I was at his house on Tuesday. He seemed like he was doing okay. He was, being his normal self, cracking jokes, smoking his Marlboros. He didn't look ill. He didn't act ill. He was his normal self. He said, because he told us, he says, "I'm healthier than most of these young people out here." And those were his exact words. I don't know, maybe not verbatim exact, but somewhere in that neighborhood anyway. He said he was more healthier than most young people. And it's like, well, that's great, Grandpa. I mean, they checked his lungs. They said his lungs were clear. Everything looked good. And I took his word for it. And it's like, okay, Grandpa, I believe you. And I say that lightly. I took his word for it because of the fact that we don't know exactly what, the cause of death was. So I want to believe my grandpa. I want to take what he says as truth, but until we know the autopsy results, we're not, I can't say. If Grandpa did have a medical condition and he just wanted to keep it from us kids so as to not worry us, and that, I can understand, but it's like at the same time, on the same token, it's like, we would have went over there to take care of Grandpa if he needed the help. I mean, it wasn't long ago when I went over to my grandpa's and he needed me to take him to Montrose to get his car. He had a Cadillac, and I followed him over to Don's Auto World. That's the name of the place in Montrose. I followed him in his Cadillac, and after he got my van, I took him back to his house, and he says, "Are you hungry?" I said, "Maybe a little bit." He says, "Well, let's go to Hope. Let's go to Junction of Hope." He'd always say, "Let's go to Hope's." And it's like, okay, Grandpa, okay, that sounds good. So, he took, we went over there, and he paid for my breakfast, and I said, "You got it, Grandpa?" And, because I had my wallet out, and he says, "Hey, you put that away. Grandpa's got this." And I got all these memories, spending time with Grandpa and helping my grandpa, and he always wanted to pay me for helping him. And it's like, "Grandpa, I'm your grandson. You don't have to pay me to do things for you." And he says, "Hey, it's not free for you." Well, I understand that, Grandpa, but, I'm your grandson. What the hell good am I if I can't help my grandpa? You don't see any of the other fucking grandkids coming over here offering to help you. And he kind of, chuckled a little bit, and he's like, "Yeah, that's right." And he says, "But I appreciate you helping me." And he says, "Now I feel better knowing that I could help you." And it's like, God damn it, Grandpa, I don't expect you to pay me back. Spending time with you is really all I needed, and I got that. I when I was over there on Tuesday, he gave me a hug and a kiss, and he says, "I love you, son." And I hugged him back, and I said, "I love you too, Grandpa." And I had no idea that would be the first time or the last time that I would ever see him again. I had no idea. I'm sorry. This is just really hard. This is really hard for me. And seeing him lying on that fucking kitchen floor, it didn't even look like him. It did not even look like Grandpa. My grandpa had the darkest hair, and he always had it kind of combed back. You know, he had it slicked back. And when I saw him on that floor, it was just like white. It was like a white or like a very light gray. It's like, this isn't my grandpa. And we had to wait for the funeral to show up at his house. And I had to watch them put my grandfather in a fucking body bag. And they put him up on that stretcher. And they wheeled him out to the hearse. And I had that last moment with him. And I said, I love you, Grandpa. I love you, Grandpa. And God, this sucks. Sorry, guys. Give me a minute. So now we got a funeral coming up. I'm not looking forward to it at all. Dad and I have been leaning on each other for support, a shoulder to cry on. This is not easy for me. It's not easy at all. When I went to Grandpa's yesterday, my Uncle Tim was there with the Saginaw Sheriff Deputy and the Saginaw County Medical Examiner. And we didn't go into the house until my Uncle Danny showed up because my Uncle Danny was power of attorney over my grandpa, so we couldn't do anything until Uncle Danny showed up. And when Uncle Danny and Annie Lane showed up, then we all went into the house, and that's where we found Grandpa. And then Uncle Van and Aunt Cheryl showed up because Aunt Cheryl was at work. So she was a little, it took her a bit of time getting there, which is understood. You got to support your family. We all got responsibilities, and we understand that, but she was still there. She was still there. And this is just, I would have suspected. My grandpa was 82 years old. He would have been 83 next Thursday, June 2nd. He was active. He was a very spry individual. I mean, he had a head full of hair. He wore a fedora. He wore a suit jacket with, his suspenders and all that stuff. He was very active. He was very spry. He'd go to the casino. He went and saw some lady friends of his. Man. That's his business. Man's gonna do what a man's gonna do. But he found companionship with a lot of these women that he would meet at the casino, and so he was trying to live his best life, because 5 years ago, his wife, my grandma Martha, which would have been my dad's stepmother, she passed away. She was in a car accident which left her in a vegetative state. And my grandpa took care of her, and even when Grandma was alive, when Grandma Martha was alive, she was in a vegetative state. I would still go over there to see her. I knew that Grandma couldn't talk. I knew that Grandma couldn't wave or make any movements. She was a vegetable. It left her basically. I don't know. I don't know if I'd use the word paralyzed, because I don't think she was paralyzed per se, but I know that she couldn't move. She was in a bed all the time, and my grandpa had to feed her, change her, turn her so she wouldn't get bed sores. He took care of her around the clock, night and day. And I knew that Grandma couldn't, she couldn't wave, she couldn't say hello. she lied there in her bed and she looked up at me. I said, "Hi, Grandma. You look beautiful today. You look lovely today." And Grandpa would always say, "Martha, this is our grandson. This is Jared. This is our grandson." And she kind of, just kind of chuckled a little bit, like, "Oh, she didn't understand. She didn't understand." But I'm going to tell you something. Every move I made, her eyes would follow. I mean, she did that with my dad. She did it with my Uncle Tim and my Uncle Dan. She watched us. Like, she watched every move we made. And he took care of her. Grandpa took care of her up until she died. This was about 5 years ago. And after she passed away, Grandpa started to get out more. He started to live, a little more than he normally would have. But he hit the road all the time. He was always on the road. He was always going to see his lady friends, which, like I said, he's a man. Man has wants. Man has needs. Whatever, But he lived his life. He lived his life the best that he could, or in the best possible way. And next week we're gonna pay our final respects and say goodbye. And I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready. I'm not prepared. My stomach has been in knots for the past 24 hours. I haven't eaten anything substantial. I've had maybe a handful of potato chips. That's it. I'm sad and I'm heartbroken and I'm depressed. I'm just not looking forward to the funeral. I'm just not looking forward to it, and I have this weird feeling that something bad's going to happen. I don't want to put too much out there, but I got a feeling that something is going to go awry at the funeral, and it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty. I'll say this much, there's been some feud in the family over the years. Not my family, but my family versus the other families. There's been some feuds going on, and I just have that feeling that it's not going to end well. Something is going to happen. Something's going to get said. It's going to be the end of it. That's going to be the war to end all wars with the family. And I hate to predict that. I hate to even say that. But this has been ongoing for decades. This has been ongoing for many, many years. And now that my grandpa's gone, I just have that gut feeling. Something is going to happen. Something is going to get said. And I hope it doesn't come to that, because Grandpa's funeral is not the time or the place to be fighting or saying anything out of line or, trying to cause problems. It is not the time or the place. But I have this feeling that something is going to happen. Tempers are going to flare, sparks are going to fly, and I just have that feeling. But I'm going to pay my respects to Grandpa. I'm going to tell him I love him one last time. And figure out where we go from here. I miss him already. I can hear his laugh. I can see him on the floor. When I was a kid, I remember going to Valley Steel in Saginaw, because my grandpa was a steel worker. He was a welder. And he worked in the oil fields in northern Michigan. He worked oil fields. He was a welder, a steel worker. And I remember going to the shop in Saginaw. And, you're on the workplace, it's all guys. There's no women around. And they would have, posters of naked women up on the wall. And my dad would always say, don't look at that, you know. And it's like, well, if you knew this was here, why are you bringing me to Grandpa's place of work, you know? And we would stop and say hi to Grandpa, and he'd say, well, hi, you know. And you give Dad a couple bucks. He says, yeah, take my grandson, you know, go get some, you know, chocolate milk and donuts for my grandson, you know, and or go to McDonald's and get a sandwich or something, you know, it's on me. And we didn't go there to get something from Grandpa. We went there just to say hello and you know, talk to his other buddies. And, you know, my grandpa, he welded the framework, the steel framework for WNEM TV5, the TV station in Saginaw. He welded the steel for the framework of the edition of Bronner's Christmas Wonderland. He helped build a lot of the recreation rooms for the state prisons. It was my grandpa and my Uncle Danny. They built a lot of things. They constructed a lot of things all across Saginaw, all across the state of Michigan. They built a lot of TV stations, radio stations, rec centers for state prisons. They did all that. They did all that stuff. So my grandpa's got his hand somewhere. Anything, you know, so from now on, I would have to say anytime I see even a rail that you hold on to walking up steps, every time I see that, I'm going to think that maybe Grandpa welded that steel. That Grandpa had his hands in that, his handiwork was in that somewhere. I'm just hurt today. I'm sad, and I am not prepared for what's to come, but I know it has to be done. And I just wanted to also use this time to thank those of you who are friends with me on Facebook. I wanted to thank you for the love and the support and the warm condolences and the kindness that you've shown me and my family. I couldn't be more appreciative of you. You mean everything to my family. You mean everything to me. And in my hard time, my difficult navigation through losing, you know, the patriarch of our immediate family, I can't appreciate you and your love and support and condolences more. I wish I could. I don't know. I feel like I owe something back. See, this is Grandpa talking. I feel like I owe something to all of you for the love and kindness you've shown me. And I appreciate it a lot. I don't know what else to say. Funeral arrangements are pending. Like I said, if you're friends with me on Facebook, I'll have that information readily available for everybody. And, you know, I'll do my best to keep everybody updated as much as I can. You know, everything is just hectic. My mind is going 100 miles an hour in like 50 different directions. I don't know what else to add. I don't know what else to say. Other than, Grandpa, I love you, and I miss you already, and I can't believe you're gone. I can't believe you're gone. This just doesn't seem real. I hardly got any sleep last night. I'm sitting here pinching myself. It's like, if this is a bad fucking nightmare, I'm ready to wake up screaming any fucking time now. Any time. I just wish this was all a bad dream. Just a nightmare. This is reality. I gotta face it. I have to accept it. You know, I even had people ask me, I mean, of all possible fucking times, I've had people ask me, if death is something that scares me. It doesn't. It really doesn't. It used to, but it doesn't. I'm not going to be aware of my own death anyway. How could I be afraid of something that I'm not going to fucking know anyhow? I'm not going to be aware of my own death. Grandpa is not aware of his own death because he's dead. He's not aware that he's gone. You don't know it when you're dead. I mean, how could you ask me something that's such a vulnerable time right now in my life, when I'm going through the most emotions and the most pain and grief and agony and sorrow? How could you ask me such a question? I mean, I understand in times like this, people tend to say things that they don't realize, that they're saying, or after it's already said, like, fuck, that's not what I meant to ask, or that's not what I meant to say. You know what I mean? That's not what I meant. And I get it. People tend to say things all the time in times of distress and emotion, and I get it. And I really don't hold that personally to anybody. But asking me after my grandpa died if I'm afraid of death, the answer is no, because when I'm dead, I'm not going to know it anyway. I'm not going to have any awareness of it. Just like when you die, you're not going to know. It's going to be one of those things where you just kind of go to sleep and you never wake up, and you're not going to know it. I watched an interview with Betty White and Larry King, which kind of, I kind of reminisce on that a little bit. Larry King says, well, what if there's nothing? And Betty White says, well, what if there isn't anything? I'm not going to know that. And she's absolutely right. There's no evidence of any afterlife. And I know this may not be the proper time to discuss religion or anything like that, but there's really no evidence of an afterlife. You're not going to know anything. You're not going to be aware of your own death. You're never going to know it. And do I think Grandpa's aware of his own death? No, because he's dead. He's not aware of it. The people who are living, those of us who are living, we are aware of another person's death because we're alive. But when we die, we're not going to be aware of our own death. We're never going to know. I'm just, I know I'm kind of all over the place, and I really didn't want to do that, but that's kind of where my mind is right now. I'm just going in 50 different directions at once at top speed, and I haven't been on Facebook as much, only to update people on what's been going on, and to kind of talk about, I want to make sure everybody is aware of funeral arrangements and all that stuff. I just want to make sure that everybody has the information they need so they can come and pay their final respects to my grandpa. So my grandpa, his name was Herbert Lewis Fuller. He was born on June 2nd, 1939 to Earl Fuller and Violet Giroux. Grandpa Fuller had a brother named Don, a brother named Elwyn, a sister named Barbara, a stepsister named Geraldine, a brother named Earl. I got to meet my Uncle Earl. I never got to meet Uncle Don and Aunt Jane. I got to meet Uncle Elwyn before he passed away. I think I've met Aunt Barbara. I have met Aunt Barbara at, I think it was at Grandma Martha's funeral. I met my Aunt Barbara, my Grandpa Fuller's sister. I never met Geraldine because she died, I think, way before I was born, so I wouldn't remember her. And then, of course, my great-grandpa Fuller, which would be, his name is Earl, too, but his nickname was Curly, and he didn't have any hair. He had a brother named Clement. He was a ringling brother in the Barnum and Bailey Circus, and he was a circus clown. He had a brother named Louis or Lewis, and yeah, I don't know much about the family on that side, but I do know that I had a great great uncle who was in the Barnum and Bailey Ringling Brothers Circus. That was my Grandpa Fuller's uncle. So there's a little bit of my family history for you. It's been said that I think it was my great-great-great-grandfather, maybe? Somewhere down the line in the generations, he was the chief of a Blackfoot Indian tribe. Most of my family, they came from Canada, and although we were all born here pretty much in Michigan, like I was born in Owasso, my grandpa, I think, was born in Saginaw. My dad and my uncles and my aunt were born in Saginaw. Most of my family is from here in Michigan. Most of the Fullers are kind of sprawled out. Some live in Arizona. Some live in Utah. We're all just kind of sprawled out, few and far between. But I have family out there. I've got lots of cousins. I got family, I think, in Texas. So I got family from pretty much everywhere. And, it's just trying to, with Grandpa Fuller passing away yesterday, it's just trying to notify everybody, get the word out. I don't know. It's all a fucking mess right now, and just like my emotions, everything is just, I'm a ball of confusion and a ball of emotion. I've been crying on and off all day yesterday, and even today, no exception to that rule. I did get a hold of Mike at the Junction of Hope and told him about Grandpa. I said, I'm sorry to tell you, Mike, Grandpa Herb is gone. He passed away, and he couldn't believe it. He says, oh my God. He says, Herbie? I said, yeah, Grandpa Fuller, Grandpa Herb. He's gone. He passed away. And I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe, that he couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the fact, because he kind of went silent for a minute. He's like, oh my God. And then I didn't hear anything for like a good solid minute almost. And it's like, yeah, man, it just disbelief. He says he was just in here the other day. He had a lady friend with him. Which sounds accurate because my grandpa, like I said, he kind of had an eye for the ladies, and he would take them to Hope, or he would, they'd go to the casino or whatever, he wanted to do with them. He'd hang out with them, spend time with them. So when Mike said that, I kind of laughed because it's like, yeah, my grandpa was definitely he was a ladies' man for sure. And he truly tried to live his best life. And I'll end this daily rant on a kind of a positive note, on a happy ending. We were over there one day, and my grandpa also sometimes used to watch the political news channels like Fox News, CNN, and Vladimir Putin come on the television. And this was, back when the shit was starting to really get hot and heavy between Ukraine and Russia. And Grandpa looked at the TV, and Vladimir Putin's face come on TV. And I'll never forget it. Grandpa says, "Yeah, fucking pudding." And I laughed so hard, just how he said it. Fucking pudding. And here I'm thinking of a pudding cup, or a bowl of pudding. And I get up. I start busting out laughing at the kitchen table. And I was like, I got to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And Dad could hear me laughing, like roaring with laughter. I laughed so fucking hard when Grandpa said that, fucking pudding. I laugh at that now. Because it's like, my God, Grandpa, you said it, man. That was hilarious, and it's still funny. I'm still laughing at that. It's like I laughed so hard that I started crying. I started to bawl. It's like, oh my God, that is the funniest shit ever. Fucking pudding. uh, you know, thank you, Grandpa, for the laughs. Thank you for the laughs. You had me laughing so hard that day that I don't even think he knew. I don't even think Grandpa knew that I laughed so hard I about fell to the floor laughing. I laughed so hard I cried. So yeah, Grandpa, you did have that sense of humor. You did make me laugh at some of the things you'd say, because he mispronounced Putin and said Puddin. It's funny listening to him. It was funny listening to him speak. And he would get so mad, he'd swear at the TV, he'd say, "Oh, you dumb son of a bitch," and he'd get the remote, "Fuck you," he says, and he'd turn the channel. He says, "You motherfuckers," and he turned the channel. It was funny. It was funny listening to him, and he would shout at the TV, like the. Sadly, with this recent tragedy that happened in Uvalde, Texas, and my heart goes out to Uvalde, Texas, and the families who were affected. But my grandpa even swore at the TV because they were talking about the Second Amendment and gun rights and all that, and Grandpa says, "Fuck you and your fucking guns." And it's like, wow, He says, all these innocent babies died. They didn't even have a fighting chance. He says, "I'm all about, rights." He says, "But now kids, babies are dying, and for what?" And he got worked up. He's like, "You motherfuckers." And he turned the channel. And he really got emotional even with that. And it's like, yeah. I agree, Grandpa, I agree with everything you say. And that, I'm not trying to turn this daily rant into anything political, but that's what Grandpa's stance was. And I agree with him. I'm all about rights, but damn it, there's people dying. Innocent children who are being massacred. And for what? For what reason? It's not just the gun right situation. It's not gun control. It's not just one thing. Everybody wants to focus on one thing. We can have both, as Jimmy Kimmel said in his anti-NRA speech. I don't know if you guys saw that on Kimmel the other night, but he was very open and dialect about that, or dialogue, I should say, not dialect, dialogue. And he had a very moving, emotional message to the NRA. You can have both. You can have your gun control, and we can also talk about mental health. Mental health gets swept under the rug in this country. We have a shitty healthcare system that people are, slipping through the cracks, falling by the wayside daily. It gets overlooked. It gets ignored. And when that happens, that's a recipe for disaster, because now you've got innocent children whose lives were robbed of them. Innocent kids who didn't do a fucking thing to anybody, and now I'm getting emotional and worked up, but with good reason. You can have your rights, but you know what? When those rights include innocent people dying, especially babies, compared to me, they were. Second, third, and fourth graders, compared to me, yeah, they're babies, and I'll say it. No shame. Although they're not babies, but they are. They didn't have a fighting chance. I agree with Grandpa on that. But I didn't want to turn this into, anything political or anything to do with that. But I'm hurting today. I'm sad. I'm doing a lot of thinking. I'm trying to process everything going on. I'm trying to understand how it happened, why it happened. There's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of unknowns in the air. We don't know the answers to a lot of the questions we have. We're trying to connect the dots. We're trying to piece everything together. And it's amazing because my dad called Grandpa. Let's see, he passed away yesterday. So my dad talked to Grandpa on the 25th, on Wednesday. It was about, I'd say, 8, maybe 8 o'clock. Talked to Grandpa for a little while, and then Uncle Danny called Grandpa around 8:30 that same night. And that, Uncle Danny was the last to talk to Grandpa. And then the ambulance was called to Grandpa's house at 6 o'clock the next morning, which was yesterday. And I don't know. Grandpa, where Grandpa was lying on the floor, he was wedged between the kitchen table and the stove. And he had a gash on his forehead. And his face looked a little bruised. So we're thinking if he fell, he might have caught his face on the table. He might have smashed his face at the table. His glasses, because Grandpa wore glasses, and his glasses were broken. Some stuff was knocked around on the table. We found some liquor bottles in the trash can next to the refrigerator. My grandpa didn't drink. He wasn't, he might have had he added a little bit of that butterscotch drink to his coffee. I mean, that generation, my grandpa was 82 years old. He would add a little bit of that butterscotch drink to his coffee every now and again, but my grandpa was not a heavy drinker. He did not, granted, he had, on the shelves in his living room, he had bottles of whiskey. He had Crown Royal, Jack Daniels. He had a lot of whiskey in his house, on the shelf in his living room. But my grandpa was not the kind of guy who would sit and just down a pint or a fifth of whiskey. My grandpa was not a heavy drinker. He had, I think, maybe a 30-pack of beer in his refrigerator, and it just sat there. Grandpa never really drank. I think he bought it for the people who would come visit him. Hey, you want a pop, a cold beer, whatever, a shot of whiskey, whatever. Sorry about that. But he would ask, he would always have something to offer for his people, his visitors. People come over, he'd offer them a drink or a bite to eat. That was my grandpa. But my grandpa was not a heavy drinker. He, like I said, he had Crown Royal and Jack and a few other, whiskeys and things like that. But he was not he didn't sit and just, like I said, he didn't sit and down a fifth or a pint of whiskey. That was not my grandpa. I think he had it just as an occasional, I'll have a shot of, whatever. No big deal. One shot of whiskey is not going to hurt you. So we're trying to understand what happened. We're trying to understand how it happened. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and a lot of the information I'm most likely not going to disclose on social media because a lot of things have to remain off the public record. And I'm not even going to mention it here in the Daily Rant. Because it's just, I don't want to run into any legal issues surrounding that, and a lot of that information you just can't publicly disclose. Unless, of course, it becomes a news story. Then, okay, it's already out into the open, everybody knows it. Okay, not a big deal. But I have a very long week ahead of me. As I said, I am not prepared for this. I'm going to see cousins that I have not seen in ages. Nobody casually gets together anymore for barbecues or just days at the park or reunions. Nobody does that anymore. No one does that. The families do not get together, and every single fucking time there's a death in the family, that's always being brought up. Well, maybe we, should have like a Sunday dinner, rent a hall, have a big meal where we can all get together, enjoy each other's company. But that never fucking happens. That never happens. We don't see each other enough to know what's going on in each other's lives. which in some instances you have to make exceptions because there may be those problematic relatives that you don't want to fucking deal with. Okay, I get it. But life is too fucking short to pass up opportunities to say, let's hang out. Let's make it a point. Let's go to a park. Let's just make a day of it. Barbecues. Let's not talk about politics. Let's not talk about hardship. Leave all that to the fucking street. Let's have this little gathering here at this park where we can enjoy each other's love and company and have a day of memories. Why doesn't anybody do that? No one wants to make any attempt. The only time we see each other is when there's a death in the family. And I know for a fact that I'm going to see relatives I haven't seen in ages. Grandpa's death is going to bring everybody together, and once everything is said and done, the funeral, the burial, we're all going to go back to our normal lives and pretend as if nothing ever fucking happened, which is the way it goes all the fucking time. All the time. It's like we can't stand to be around each other. We're always belittling each other. We're putting ourselves above everybody. Well, I'm better than this relative, or ew, look at how he dresses. Or, you know what? It's not about that. It's not about that. It's not about your economic status. It's not about the fucking clothes you wear. It's nothing to do with looks or anything, money or anything. It's a fucking funeral. It's a funeral. We are there to celebrate the life of the person who died. That's what a funeral is. You don't go there to start trouble. You don't go there to gossip and to, whispering off in a corner. You don't fucking do that at somebody's funeral. You show some respect and some decency when you're paying your respects to someone who just died. You don't go there looking for trouble or causing problems. But that's my family. That's my family. We're all, I got relatives who look down on me all the fucking time. That's why most of the reason, I'd say all the reason, why I don't make it a point to go and visit. So yeah, maybe I am a hypocrite, but you know what? At least I can come here publicly and say, we all should get together, but you know what? Your ego is stopping me from coming to see you. And that's basically what it is. There's too many judgmental people in my family who will look down on me because I drive this or I wear this or ew, They get the ew feel. You know what? Fuck you. I don't care what you think about me. Never have, never will. Your opinions and thoughts about me didn't matter then, and they sure as fuck don't matter now. Because I'm not here for you. And that's going to be my attitude when I walk through the doors of that funeral parlor for my grandfather. I don't care what any of them have to say about me. I don't care. I'm not there for them. I'm there to pay respects for my grandfather because out of all of us grandkids, even on the day he fucking died, out of all of us grandkids, I was the only grandkid who was there. The only grandkid. None of my cousins showed up. None of them were around. Not one. Now, I understand with Uncle Tim's kids because they had to see their mom lying on the fucking living room floor, my Aunt Rhonda. So, for them, I understand why they didn't go to Grandpa's. You don't get over things like that. You don't. And this does not apply to them because I understand. They are the exception because they saw their mother die in front of them. My cousin Matt and my cousin Timmy. So for them, I understand why they didn't want to go to Grandpa's. They're still trying to get over their mother, which you never get over that. That's the one thing you will never get over. But all my other cousins, where the fuck were they? Where were they? They never went over to see Grandpa. They didn't acknowledge him. They didn't call him up. They didn't go over to see Grandma when she was alive. I did. I'm the only grandkid. I was over there more than even the other grandkids, Martha's grandkids. And every time they went over there, they always expected something. And I know I shouldn't be saying this, but, I'm upset and I'm hurt. And I'm just really, I'm upset by this because every time I went to Grandpa and Grandma's, I didn't care, that Grandma could never say hi to me. I didn't care that Grandma never acknowledged who I was. I didn't care. As long as she knew that I was there for her. She's Grandma, for Christ's sake. Just like with my grandpa. Grandpa's grandpa, You don't have to like him. You don't have to love him. I loved him. Yeah, he may have said and done some things that upset me before. But don't we all? Don't we all say and do things that upset people at some point in time? Nobody's perfect. So I overlooked that. And it's like, maybe Grandpa's just going through a rough time himself. I don't want to, I just let it go through one ear and out the other, which is what Dad did. But I still loved my grandfather. And I will always love my grandfather. And I'm not here saying that my cousins don't love Grandpa. Excuse me. I'm not here to say that my grandparents or my cousins don't love my grandpa. I'm not saying that at all. And I'm not making that proclamation. I'm not even hinting around to it. All I'm saying is that even when I didn't think I had to go to Grandpa's, I still went over there because he's my grandpa. That was enough for me. That was reason enough to go and see my grandfather. He was my last surviving grandparent after Martha died. He was the only grandparent I had left. And now I don't even have him anymore. I did what I had to do. And I did the best I could to help my grandpa when he needed it. I was there for him all the time. I'd go over to see him casually. Like I would take my dad to Saginaw to his doctor's office so he could get his prescription. On the way back home, we would either stop in at Grandpa's or we would go over to Hope and Dad would call Grandpa and say, "Hey, Grandpa." Or Grandpa, he would say, "Hey, Dad, Jared and I is over at Hope. If you didn't have anything to eat yet, why don't you come join us?" He says, "Okay, I'm get dressed, get my stuff around. Okay, we'll see you then." And he would always join us. We'd have our bacon, eggs, and toast, and hash browns. But I did notice, because my grandpa used to be able to clear his plate. But I noticed the last time I was with him at Hope, he didn't clear his plate. He had the same amount of food that I had on my plate, and I cleared my plate. 4 slices of toast, bacon, hash browns, the eggs, the sunny side up egg. I cleared my plate. I always clear my plate when I go to Hope. Grandpa didn't. And that was very unlike Grandpa. I don't know if Grandpa just wasn't feeling well that day, or if Grandpa, I don't know if it was just because he was getting older. I don't know. I don't know what the deal was. I never could figure that out. Because we were sitting there eating and he says, "Phew, I'm already full." I'm kind of looking over like, something's up. Because Grandpa usually clears his plate. So I don't know. Maybe something was, like I said, maybe something was going on, and he just didn't want to worry us. He didn't want to tell us anything. But until the autopsy results come back, there's nothing. I can't extrapolate on that until I know for sure what the cause of his death was. I don't know if it was a heart attack. I don't know. I have no idea. Nobody knows. Our minds are reeling, trying to figure this out. We're trying to connect the dots. We're trying to find the missing pieces to this puzzle. Because, like I said, I was at my grandpa's on Tuesday, which was the 24th, my Aunt Cheryl's birthday, and it would have been Martha's 85th birthday. And he, coincidentally, he died 2 days after would have been Grandma's 85th birthday. Which, that's something else that just blows my fucking mind. But I was over there on Tuesday, and he didn't look sick. He was his typical, usual self, Grandpa being Grandpa. You know, we didn't suspect that he was sick in any way. He said that he fell off a ladder and he kind of hurt his ribs a little bit. Okay, I'm liable to believe that, but now that Grandpa's gone, now, you know, like when something's loading on the computer, you see that thing circling around and around and around. That's kind of where my brain is now. Like I'm just circling around trying to, because now I'm rethinking the whole position of what he said. Maybe it is true. I don't know. I wasn't there. But the fact that he even said, yeah, I went to the doctor and you know, they said that I'm healthy. You know, everything checked out good. My lungs are clear. You know, my heart's good. Everything looks good. I'm as healthy as most, you know, young people are. Those were his words. And then he dies on the fucking 26th, yesterday. I question that now. Now I don't know if Grandpa was actually telling us the truth. I want to believe that what he said was true, because then if what he said is true, then it couldn't have been a heart attack. It couldn't have been anything health related. If what he said was accurate, which makes that loading symbol, so to speak, continue to rotate in my head. Because if Grandpa was, he told Uncle Tim and Uncle Danny and maybe not Aunt Cheryl, but he talked to Uncle Tim and Uncle Danny quite a bit. And he told them the same thing that he told us. I'm as healthy as can be. Which made me happy. It's like, well, that's good. You know, Grandpa's going to be around for a long time. Boy, was I wrong. Because, you know, generally, yes, I understand. You don't know. You don't know when your time is. You never know. And I keep going back to seeing him on that floor. And I just can't get that image out of my head. I just can't, no matter how hard I try. I didn't get much sleep last night because every time I closed my eyes, that's all I seen. Was the image of my grandfather laying on his kitchen floor, dead, lifeless. And we're all just standing there looking over him. And Uncle Danny walked in. He saw Grandpa on the floor and he says, "Oh, man." And he says, "God dang it, Dad. What's going on?" And then he just lost it. And my dad got down on the floor and put his face up to Grandpa's and he says, What happened to my dad?" And I lost it when they put him in that body bag and they were, you know, his head was still out, but the rest of his body was covered. And they let us have one last moment with him before they wheeled him into the hearse. And I rubbed the side of his face. I said, "I love you, Grandpa." And after that, I lost it. And I broke down on Dad, I think maybe 2 or 3 times last night. And I broke down again today. Dad broke down again today. Because it hurts. It's painful. But I've been here for about an hour, and I appreciate you all stopping and listening and spending this last hour with me and listening to my thoughts and listening to me project my thoughts and some ideas. And if you're friends with me on Facebook, just please bear with me and proverbially, kind of hold my hand through this, or just at least be patient. Maybe you don't even have to necessarily, proverbially hold my hand, but just be patient with me and try to understand that I have sustained a huge loss, and I'm trying to process my emotions. I'm trying to get through this and deal with this and be as strong as I can be, and I'm trying to deal with everything the best that I can, to the best of my ability. I'm digging deep in I'm trying to find strength, more strength within, to be strong for my dad, to be strong for my Uncle Tim and my Uncle Danny and my Aunt Cheryl. Because like I said, out of all of us grandkids, I was the only one who was there. By the time they had taken Grandpa away in the hearse, my brother Jay showed up with his girlfriend, and Grandpa was already, they already taken him away. So Jay didn't see what I saw. So that's why I'm taking this particularly the hardest between my brothers and myself, because they weren't there. They didn't see what I saw. And I'm not, it's not a matter of superiority, all your feelings are discounted or whatever. That's not what I'm getting at all. I'm just saying that they weren't there to see what I saw. They're not feeling what I'm feeling. So on that note, I love you all very much, and I appreciate you hanging out for the last hour and 2 minutes or so, give or take. My name is Jared Fuller, a.k.a. the Jared Bear. There won't be a Sunday video update. I also wanted to mention that there's not going to be a Sunday video update. I canceled it this week. In honor of, I'm not in any... I wasn't even sure if I was going to do this daily rant, to be honest. I didn't think I could bring myself to talk about this. But the Sunday video update has been canceled for the 29th. Just give me some time. I'll try to upload more content to this channel as best as I can. But just please bear with me. And I love you all, and I thank you for the support and the warm condolences and the love and the kindness you've shown. It's helping me to cope with this, and I got some of the best friends in the fucking world. I'll tell you that. Some of the greatest friends in the world. And I can say they're my friends because they're there for me when I need them. So I love you all, and I thank you for listening. Tell the people that you love them. Because there is no later on. There is no, well, I could, but I'll just put it off for a later time. Tell the people you love and care about now that you love them and care about them now. It's more than just a cliche or a meme on Facebook that tomorrow isn't promised. That is an actual fact of life. That is a fact of reality. Tomorrow is not promised. The next 5 minutes are not promised. You have to make it a point to tell people how you feel. You tell them, I love you, I'm happy you're in my life, I am grateful and I'm thankful for you. You have to tell people. Don't be shy about telling people you love them. Everybody's gotten so damn shy about that, because they think that, well, if a female tells me that they love me, they think I'm going to get a swelled head or whatever. It's not even that. I understand what they're saying, and even then they have to put the qualifier, I love you, friend, which I think is kind of ridiculous. I think it's silly. But just tell people you love them. Make sure that you seize every opportunity to tell people that you love them, you care about them, and you're grateful for them. You're happy that they're in your life. Make it known. Don't live with this mentality that there's going to be a later on. There's never going to be a later on. There is no later on. When someone dies, that's it. There is no later on. You have to tell people now. And when I was at Grandpa's on Tuesday, and I'll say it one last time before I wrap it up, he gave me a hug, he kissed me on the neck, he says, I love you, son. And I hugged him back. I said, I love you too, Grandpa. And that is one thing that I can take with me for the rest of my life. I love you all. I'll catch you a little later. Take care.